All right, so as I said in the previous question, every compressor begins at its threshold. And as you can see here, I have it set to 0 dB, and that's basically the loudest sound in decibels in the digital domain. If you don't understand what that means or you're confused about decibels, I did make a video about it, and I'll include an annotation for you to click it. You can go back, brush up on it, review it real quick before you continue on with this if you're confused. But for those of you to understand, you know, I have it set at 0, and as I adjust the threshold, you see how it continues down negatively, and as I pull this down, you see this little dot in a graphical representation of how it slides down the slope. Now this slope changes depending on its ratio. The ratio is, say for instance, like it's at a 1-to-1 ratio. You know, 1-to-1 is a perfect equal, you know, it's like the same amount. But like, okay, I'll give you an example. Like, you know, say you're at a party, you know what I'm saying, you chilling and shit, and then you get a phone call from one of your homeboys, and they're like, yo, man, where you at? You're like, yo, man, I'm at this party, you know what I'm saying, chilling. They're like, well, yo, man, isn't any hoes up in there? And you're like, nah, man, it's real bad, dog. It's like 4-to-1. You know what I'm saying? It's like a sausage party. You know what I mean? So when you look at it that way, it's like, that means for every 4 dudes, there's only 1 female. And it works sort of the same way in sound, but in the opposite respect. Like, say, for instance, if the ratio, if I put 2-to-1, it doesn't literally write out 2-to-1 in front of you, but imagine in your mind 2-to-1. What's happening is, once it goes past its threshold, for every 2 decibels that it's over the threshold, it gets reduced back to 1. If it's at 3-to-1, for every 3 dB, it gets reduced back to 1. For every 4 dB, it gets reduced back to 1. And you see, every time that I increase this ratio, you see how the slope changes and sharply blocks. You know, it basically gets to a point where it's damn near horizontal, you know. And if you can imagine, when the audio passes through and its ratio is at 8, it's pretty much squashing the sound. And that's basically how a limiter works. But I'll get into limiters in a separate video. But to give you an idea of how this would sound, we're going to test it out. I'm going to reset everything back to where it was. And I already have a sound pulled up right here. And I'm going to show you what happens when you play with some of the 2 settings that I told you about, the threshold and the ratio. I'm just going to fiddle with it, and hopefully you'll catch on to some of the changes. All right, so I'm going to start messing with it. Check it out. Now, as you can see, as I press this note and move the threshold, again, the compressor is working, but it's not really doing anything because, again, a ratio of 1-to-1 is equal. So it's basically the same as from when it started off. So it's not really doing anything overall. But once now say I put the ratio to like, say the highest, like, or the highest on this compressor, which is 8, and I change the threshold. Watch this. So I'm pressing the sound. And as I pull the threshold down, you see the way it's just seriously reducing the dynamic of the sound to the point where it's really muffled and low. And as I pull it back up, the sound goes back to normal. So this is literally reducing the range of the sound to where it has no room to work. And in a lot of ways, you know, for the sake of argument, yeah, you can say that it makes it quiet in this instance. But you got to look at it like it's reducing its dynamic range. Now, what I can do is, say I use a ratio of 2-to-1. Again, for every 2 dB, it gets reduced to 1. So there's still a slope involved, but it's not as harsh, or it's not as tight as, say, a higher ratio. So we'll do that same sound. Watch what happens this time. You see how it's reducing the dynamic range, but it still has a fairly musical feel in this instance. It's not as bright, but you know, with a decent amount of threshold and ratio, it smooths out the sound. If you're looking for that kind of, you know, if you're looking to reduce the dynamic range but still have it pleasing to the ear. But I'm going to stop the video right here, and in the next part, I'm going to explain the attack and release. I'll holler at you later.